So we see that what does Allah give His Prophet? He gives him Mi'raj, for example, that high station, that high connection, that he travels towards Allah, towards the completeness of Allah in the spiritual experience and the physical mi'raj that took place. We see that Rasulullah is as if two bows. If you take two bows together and stretch them, that is how close he became, is it figuratively, to Allah. So the blessing that Allah gives His prophets, His imams, the believers, is that connection, that special connection. What effect does this connection have? One of the blessings of that connection is calmness, tranquility. And we mentioned in the Quran that the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, causes tatma'innul qulub, causes calmness of the heart, causes calmness of the hearts. You see yourself when you are more spiritual, religious, dedicated, that you're actually much more calm. And the more separate you are, the more thirsty you are for religion and spirituality, the more agitated you are, the more anxiety you have, the more anxious you are. Is this the only cause of anxiety? No. But generally, from the teachings of Quran, being calm stems from the remembrance and connection to God. Tonight's discussion, that for the next around 30 minutes, we'll be discussing embracing tranquility and some of the strategies to overcome anxiety. What causes anxiety? Different factors. When you look at some of the statistics, you see, for example, in the Mental Health Foundation, talks about 51% of adults who were stressed reported feeling depressed as well. There's a connection with stress, anxiety, and depression. If you leave that stress alone, if you leave that anxiety alone, it can turn into depression. What are people stressed about? Some of them say 22 cited from the adults, that debt. Some people are anxious because of debt. They owe their financial situation. They owe people money. Some say 12% fewer say the fact that they felt they have to respond to messages all the time. They were not at ease. These phones were supposed to create for us ease. But now you don't answer it. Now you don't message back. Now you don't respond to that email. You get stressed. You don't allow, and that's why you see that places sometimes where there is no reception, you're like, Alhamdulillah, nobody can reach me. You're always trying to find those very pockets that there's no reception. 3, we see that, maybe we'll talk about this later on, what causes stress? 49% of 18 to 24-year-olds said they had high levels of stress due to comparison. Comparing their lives to one another. For example, studies, my grades, for example, or my child's grades, comparing it to somebody else. Or, for example, my financial situation, they invited me to their house, very nice. But how come after leaving that house, I have more anxiety, I have more stress? Because I'm comparing my house, my lifestyle to theirs, which is wrong. We'll give stories about this. Comparing what I have to what somebody else has had, which is wrong. We're taught generally in religion to compare ourselves when it comes to the material with those that are below us in terms of financial. To look at my blessings and say, Alhamdulillah, be grateful. But when it comes to religion and spirituality, to compare myself to those that are higher than me. And I say, wow, look at these brothers, look at these ulama, look at these scholars. I am nothing compared to them. We see younger people are stressed about success. Am I going to be successful or not? Many times around this time, when college applications, the letters start coming in, are you accepted to this school? Are you not accepted to this school? Young people are stressed out. Will they receive, for example, a large letter, which is an application form, or a small letter that means, sorry, you have been rejected from this university? This causes stress. Or when it comes to jobs, that I have been rejected from this job that I needed, for example, I wanted to have. Or when it comes to marriage, and you pursue somebody for marriage, and they say no to you, for example, it causes stress and anxiety. These are some of the statistics about stress. When it comes to this verse that I mentioned in Surah Al-Ra'd, that beware that with the remembrance of Allah, it causes calmness, tranquility, itminan. Ayatollah Karam Shirazi gives different factors besides these that cause stress. One of them is stress about the future. What will happen in the future? Stress about possibly what is happening right now internationally. What is happening right now to our Muslim brothers and sisters in Lebanon, in Gaza. This is one of the reasons why I chose to talk about this topic, is that many community members, they feel stressed. They feel an anxiety because we feel helpless that we cannot do anything, that we're watching starvation and genocide, watching innocents, thousands be killed. Some from the Lebanese community, for example, that is happening from their own towns and cities that they live in, or family members that have passed away from them. So we feel stressed because we're as if we're one body. And the narrations mention that the Ummah is one nation. The roots of this nation, of this tree, this entity, is Rasulullah. The trunk of this tree is Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, this hadith of the tree. The branches are the Imams, and the leaves are us, the Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt. And when a leaf is born, a new Shia is born. When that leaf falls, another Shia passes away, falls. So we see that we are one entity, one tree. So therefore, if one part of that tree is damaged or injured, the other part is also in pain. So we have anxiety and stress this last 1 year, from October to this October. We have been stressed about what is going on. 2, sometimes when it comes to sin, Ayatollah Karam says, sin also causes distress for us. Sin causes anxiety, that I feel myself not worthy. I tell myself, look at what you did, for example. Look at your past. And shaitan is always trying to amplify this in you and trying to get you away from repentance and starting new. But Allah is opening the doors of repentance always for you. Allah is mentioning in the Quran that I will forgive all sins and tell those servants of mine who have sinned that Allah will forgive all sins. The third is weakness. This causes anxiety. The fourth, Ayatollah Karam mentions that feeling a voidness, uselessness in our lives, feeling that I don't have a purpose, I don't know why I have been created, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I don't have a purpose in life, I don't know where I am from, where I will go to, I don't know where I am right now. Answering these fundamental questions, what Deen does, takes us away from anxiety. Imagine all of the stress that the world has, all the difficulty it has. If you really were to believe that there's for no purpose, I'm just here just to be. I don't even know why I'm here. But I know I'm suffering. I know it's hard. I know life is not easy. But there's no point to all of it. That would cause for us a lot of anxiety. But at the opposite, when you see there is a goal, you see there's a purpose, and I know that Allah is watching, and I know I am suffering, I know it is hard, but I know there's also reward, because we have traditions that أفضل الأعمال أحمزها, the best of action is the hardest of action. I know that these remove sins. I know that, God forbid, some people, recently we had members of our community that passed away with cancer, a very difficult death. One of the scariest words that they say today you can say is the word cancer. Difficult death, long time being seeking treatment. At the end, they passed away. Well, if you don't have purpose in life, you'd say, well, they just died, they had cancer, they suffered. But when you approach it with the religious aspect, you say, well, one of the purposes of this is that they're removing the sins. One of the purpose of this, if somebody who has a hard death, they will have a very good akhirat for themselves, a very good hereafter. They will have a good barzakh. You see, when you look at it in the religious way, that even though the cancer can eat away at the body, but it cannot eat away at the soul. And our reality is the soul. So you see how much different life is, and how much less stress and anxiety you will have once you follow the instructions, the theological beliefs of Islam, and the practices of Islam. The other is having a negative opinion, not being able to control the imagination. The seventh, then he mentions, or this should be actually the sixth, is that I get stressed sometimes by people not noticing me working hard and not being appreciated for my hard work. Saying that I have worked so hard, sometimes you see this for years, they say I have spent my entire life for this company. And now they don't want to give me, for example, take care of me, now they want to fire me. Or for example, now they don't even, they'll hire someone else instead of me, or now AI will replace me, for example. But when you come from the religious background, you know that what I have done is for Allah, even if it is at work, which is one of the great worships of Allah. If I have worked hard and sincerely, that is halal income. If I have gone to work on time, Allah is watching and knows that that money has barakat for me. He is blessing me with that money that is halal money. The last thing that we see is that causes us anxiety is love of the world. Love of the world, the more we go into this world, which has been sometimes exampled by a snake, that there is poison in it. Some of our imams mentioned that it's soft to the touch, this world, but inside there is a poison that will kill us. Or in some traditions have been compared to salt water, that when you drink it, all that happens is you become more thirsty and more thirsty. So this allows someone to be more susceptible. When they are attached to the world, when they have more and they don't know how to control themselves, they have more to protect, more to be anxious about. This stock went up today, this stock went down today, this investment went up. I don't know what I'm going to do, for example, when it comes to this car that I bought, how can I sell it now? Always anxious about things that they own. Not understanding that these are tools for us to be tested in this world. And that when Allah gives me resources, my job is only to spend it in the way that Allah has given me. If He has given me rizq, that is the rizq of my children, my wife, my husband, for example, those that are female. This is a test for me to be able to expend it and spend it in the right way. The thing that I want to talk about tonight, about how to remove stress, how to remove anxiety and have more tranquility. One way that I will start is being connected and being close to those that are calm. Meeting, studying, researching the lives of the prophets and imams, studying the lives of the ulama and scholars, and if you have a chance, connecting to them, seeing them, meeting them. Many times there are those that say, I have so many problems in my life, but when I saw this great alim that was an alim, a Rabbani, a spiritual scholar, my problems were removed because everything that they were doing was a lesson for me. They asked one of the great scholars, they said, was there dars al-akhlaq and Qom during your time around 100 years ago? They said, there's no ethics class. There's only great individuals, and we would take dars from their actions, from their sayings. So during such a time where we need to remove stress from the community, we need to remove anxiety from ourselves, one of the best ways is to come together, benefit from each other's company, visit those who are spiritual, visit those who have knowledge, separate yourselves from those that are batin, their lives are void. Separate yourselves from those that are ghafil, that are neglectful of the hereafter of Allah. The more you get into those kind of groups, the more you accompany, even if they are Muslim, but they are ghafil and heedless, they are going to drag you down with them. We look at the tradition from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, please say salawat. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He describes people of being three with his advice in Nahj al-Balagha to Kumail. We are of three types. An-nasu thalath. Fa'alamun Rabbani. One is that scholar that is divine. A scholar who really is spiritual. They call him Rabbani because of his connection to the Rabb, to the Lord. That you meet some of these ulama in Najaf and Qom and different places, you actually become calm when you see them. You actually gain much. Three people of three types. Either they're alim or Rabbani, they're that scholar, that spiritual scholar. They don't have any connection to the world. They will do what Allah commands them, even if they put their lives in harm's way, even if they put their family members in harm's way. They have no association with the dunya and world. The Rabbani, their lives are in the other realm. Two, we see that muta'allimun ala sabil al-najat. The second type of people are the students, the seekers of knowledge, that they're seeking knowledge to save themselves. So we're either of these two groups. There's three. Two of them are good. Either you're that divine, spiritual scholar, that scholar that some of the traditions mention, that the person to accompany, he increases your knowledge. When you look at him, he reminds you of God. When you look at his actions, you get encouraged to do good. Sometimes when I was in the holy city of Qom, and I would visit some of the greats, some of the Maraja, immediately just sitting next to them, seeing how much knowledge you had, you immediately wanted to study more. You say, what am I doing in my life, for example? How come I don't have that knowledge? Why? Remember I said compare yourselves in spirituality to those higher. You compare yourself and say, this is a much that he was a human like me. But he studied, he made sacrifices. When we are always, for example, hanging out, having fun, wasting our time, they use all of that time for seeking knowledge. So therefore, when you see such great people, it gives you that inspiration. My encouragement for you too is, when you make those ziyarah trips, when you visit, try to make sure you also have that connection to a spiritual, divine scholar. Sometimes we hear of individuals who want to move out of this country. They want to go to another country to live. I tell them this: if you move out of this country, make sure you find a spiritual scholar, a religious scholar, a true scholar that you frequently visit and benefit from and connect with and learn from and write down his instructions and act upon it. Then I noticed those people that have done this and migrated, they had a very good spiritual life. But those that just wanted to move just to move, and they spent their times with their families. It's Thursday night. They used to go to Dua Kumail here and Yasin or different places. Now it's Thursday night over there, which is, the weekend. They're just visiting the family, which is good, but they're just talking, eating, and visiting family every Thursday night. They used to do Dua Kumail when they're in America. They used to come to and get advice and mu'adha and advice once a week, but now they don't frequent the masjids anymore. Now if they're comfortable with their lives, they will not benefit, they will not reach that calmness and knowledge, reaching those people that are true spiritual. And we have members, of this, even if they're not scholars and members of this community, that some of them have very high levels of iman. Visiting them, attending their classes, for example, seeing them, this will make you of that second group, that student that is studying to get najat. Brothers and sisters, our time that we have is precious. The companionship that we have with others, we will be asked about it. Why did you accompany this person? Why did you accompany that person? One of the ni'mas that Allah has given to us is our time and our ability to meet the brothers, or sisters for sisters. If we use this wisely, accompany each other who have high levels of beliefs, believe me, then you're making use of this ni'mah that God had given you. But if you take this time and you are visiting people that, I'm not saying to seclude yourself in such a way nobody ever sees you, but for your own spiritual benefit, for your family's own spiritual benefit, if you develop a community in a way that you're always seeing the top believers, the good believers, those that truly have taqwa, then that is a way that you're actually making use of Allah's blessing. The third is hamajun ra'a. أتباع كل نائق يميلون مع كل ريح. The last is the common rot who run after every color and bend in the direction of every wind. You see, the third group is a person that wherever the wind blows, they go in that direction. If the wind blows east, they go east. If the wind goes west, they go west. This is the third type. Either of these three types of categories Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions to Kumayn. Either you're the alim or Rabbani, you're a muta'allim, or the rest, you are that person being swayed back and forth. Whatever the media tells you, you believe. Whatever people tell you, you believe. You don't have any foundation for yourself. You can't be able to decipher knowledge by yourself. This is a great, great danger that we have. So we see that the first and second are the path of salvation. One of the interesting things in the du'as that we have is Dua Abu Hamza that we read in which month? Shahr Ramadan. Dua Abu Hamza we recite in Shahr Ramadan. If you recite outside of Shahr Ramadan, it's fine. But in this dua, it's very interesting. It talks about how important it is to frequent the scholars, the ulama. And it mentions, and some of the scholars say, that why, if you ask yourselves, why do I not pay attention in salat? Actually, today I was asked this question from a reader. It says, how can I focus more in salat? I forgot to mention that there's about 9 or 10 points from Dua Abu Hamza from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam that mentions how you can focus more in salat by these few things. One of them that's mentioned here is, he mentions that actually the beginning is this in the dua. وَقُمْتُ لِلصَّلَاةِ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ وَنَاجَيْتُكَ, and for offering my prayers before you and conversing confidentially with you. أَلْقَيْتَ عَلَيَّ النُّعَاسِ, you have given me, thrown me slumber, Allah. I come to pray, but you have thrown upon me slumber. When it comes to watching movies, films, I'm awake all the way to matla al-fajr, to fajr time. I will be awake to binge watch this series. All the way I'll stay up. But when it comes to 3 units of prayer, Allahu Akbar, I feel tired, I feel sleepy. When it comes to helping out in masjid or ibadat or other, I don't have time, I don't feel like it. When it comes to coming to the programs, I don't feel like it. I feel so tired. But if I tell you right now, let's go, for example, hang out and have fun, let's go to this, for example, coffee shop down the street, for example, you'll be awake. Yes, that's fun for me, for example. So it says, why am I like this? Why do I have nu'as? Why am I have slumber? One of the reasons in Dua Abu Hamza, and one of our scholars was explaining, says, because of this, it says, أو لعلك فقدتني من مجلس العلماء فخذلتني. Perhaps you have found me not in the meetings of the scholars, and you have let me down, or I have reached this status because of this. One of the reasons is because I have left the majlis of the ulama. Ulama here, we can say necessarily not someone like me, I'm a student, but the speakers, the lecturers that are ulama, or the fact that they give maw'idah and advice from the ulama, or they're teaching you Quran, or they're teaching you hadith. When you leave this, there's a relationship from this and salat that is weak. 2, it says, oh, you saw me in the majlis of the ghafilin. Ra'aytani fil ghafilin. Maybe because you have saw me with those that are unattentive or inattentive. Those that have forgotten Allah. Those have forgotten, maybe I was with them. Now my salat is like this. Now I am not in that calmness. I'm not in that, anxiety and stress because I have left the great scholars. I have left that advice. 3 of the battalin. Battalin are those of the wrongdoers, those whose lives is full of batil, wrongness. So we see that people that we accompany will have a great effect on how calm I will be, how much anxiety I have, how much stress I have. And I'm sure you know it. The more religious you are, the more spiritual you are, the more advice you listen from the Quran and Sunnah, from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the more you notice that I'll be peaceful. The more you notice I'll be less angry, for example. One of the problems that we have is that many times we want to raise kids and we want to have a family that is full of calm, full of peace, but ourselves, we're always full of war and anger, for example. And you teach that child to be calm, you teach that child to be resilient, you teach that child not to have stress. But yes, you are the most stressful person, yet you are the most angry person in the household. One of the reasons for this is that children are learning possibly from us. They're saying that, well, my parents are like this, then I'm going to also be stressed. You bring that stress to that child. So we really have to focus on ourselves to see how can I remove. I want to live a life of tranquility. I want to be in a place, the Quran mentions that one of the signs of Allah is marriage. And one of the places of tranquility or taskeen, different Arabic, vocabulary is used for tranquility and peace. One is taskeen, to be tranquil, for example. One is, to have itminan, for example, that calmness. And we see these are all qualities of the believers. Now, a question that happens, and Ayatollah Maikaram brings this up before we say the last thing, is there a conflict with being very calm with being fearful? Because Quran also mentions that the signs of the believers, wajilat qulubuhum, for example, their hearts, when their signs of God's are mentioned, their hearts shake. That also we should be fearful of God. Fear, in a way, is not being calm, is the opposite of calm. How can I be fearful, yet at the same time be calm? Because being calm means that you think everything's okay. I don't have fear. Usually fear causes stress and anxiety. I'm not calm. So how can I resolve this? This seems to, in our mind, to be a contradiction. Which one are you going to choose? To fear God, for example, or to be calm? He mentions this, that what are we really fearful of? And when you look at the tafsir of khawf, when you look at the meaning of fear, fear means in reality that I'm fearing the repercussions and the effect of my own actions. That is what fear is. Fear in reality is voidness of God's rahmah and mercy. Places where I did not deserve God's mercy. When I look at my own life and I have insufficiencies from my own actions, yes, I have fear because of this. But when I look at Allah, I don't truly fear Allah. I am fearing God's wrath because of my own actions. So therefore, to put these two things together, you will fear, you have anxiety for the world. But when it comes to Allah, you will fear Him because of your own repercussions. So therefore, you can also, at the same time, there's no contradiction to say, I am fearful of God, but at the same time, I have a calm heart because I am fearing my own actions in reality, but my calmness is coming from that connection and completeness to Allah. But I'm fearing my own actions. I'm fearing what I will do myself. I don't truly fear because God is not a being. God is absolute completion. I don't fear God. I fear in reality the repercussions from my own actions. So when I strengthen my connection, I get to know God, I have calmness, I have tawakkul, I have patience. But then when it comes to my own actions, I have fear. The last thing that I want to mention tonight is one of the factors of anxiety and stress that we mentioned, and we said in some of the statistics it is one of the higher ones, is comparison. Comparing myself to others. Brothers and sisters, Allah has created us all differently. Another stress that happens is looks of my body, my physical face, for example. When I look at God's blessings and the way that He has created and giving everyone shape and form, He has done this. Have you made your own image? You had nothing to do with that image, that face that you have today, right? The way you look, for example, your height. Has anyone, for example, is responsible for their own height? No, nobody is responsible for their own height. These are all things that God has placed. And if I really think of it and I start complaining about it, I'm only comparing to God, I'm only complaining about God's decisions or what God's taqdeer and what He has placed for mankind. I'm going against His rububiyyat, His lordship. Because whatever God does, He does it for a purpose. And whatever He does in this world, it is temporary. It's only for the physical. This body will be decaying. But what will really remain with me is my actions and my spirituality. So when I think of comparing myself with others, and I see that I've worked so hard, I have the best education, for example, but yet this person who never got a college degree is making twice, 3 times the amount of money of me. I have to clock in at work early in the morning every time. I have to work overtime, for example. This guy never works. He's always on vacation. That's not fair. So these things cause me, when I compare my life to others, and I see their homes, their life, for example, how many children they have, for example, how much blessings they have in their life, this causes me sadness. This causes me stress. So one of the things that we have to do is remove comparison when it comes to material things. Stop comparing. Tell myself, this is what Allah wants for me. This is my rizq. This is my test. Many of you here went to high school and college, almost all of you. So when you went to college and you took an exam, and it was a Scantron exam, and you filled it out, did you have any attachment with this piece of paper that was your exam? No, there's no attachment. You gave in the test. In the same way, what Allah gives us from our material blessings, that Allah gives some a lot, Allah gives some few. But all He is doing is testing us with it. As how the traditions say, Imam Ali says, one day will be lak, one day will be for you, one day will be alayk, one day will be against you. Then at the end, the tradition mentions that Allah is going to test you, to see which one of you, for example, will be patient when it is against you, which one of you will be rebellious when it is for you. So we have times, all of us have ups and downs in our lives. We have to remember that there is a reason why Allah gives health to someone and gives sickness to someone. When you look at the Holy Quran, 2 prophets are right next to each other, their stories. When you look at Surah Al-Anbiya, Prophet Sulaiman is right before the story of Prophet Ayub. One prophet who has control over speaking to animals, speaking to the ants even, control of the winds, control of the jinn, and a kingdom that nobody else had. And the other who lost it all, lost his family, lost his wealth, lost his health, lost everyone. But yet both of them are together to teach us this lesson. Your life can be like Prophet Sulaiman. Your life can be like Prophet Ayub, for example. But we understand that both of them were prophets of Allah, but both of them had different tests. So it's not in a way Prophet Ayub would compare his life, Allah, why didn't you make me like Prophet Sulaiman? Why didn't you make me like Prophet Dawood? Or you didn't see that comparison. Why? Because the Anbiya of Allah do not compare. When you look at another example in the Holy Quran, you see the story of Qarun. Qarun was a person that became immensely rich. He became very rich when you read his story throughout the Quran. And you see that his wealth, his richness actually caused them to be separate from Allah. You see in his example, it says that, the Quran says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ يُرِيدُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. And those who wanted the world, when they saw Qarun, they compared themselves. They said, some say that the keys to his treasures, they could not even lift the keys. Some say this verse goes to how, for example, some of the other verses, how heavy the keys were to his, for example, chest of money and wealth that he had. And it says, Quran says, يَا لَيْتَ لَنَا مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ قَارُونَ إِنَّهُ لَذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. They compared their life and says, look at Qarun, look how rich he is. How come we are not as rich as him? This is verses from the Quran I'm mentioning. Then it says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ. Those that had knowledge, they said this. Those that were wise, Quran answers this comparison. So a very clear example. If somebody asks you, give me an example of negative comparison in the Quran, Quran mentions the story of Qarun and those that wish they're like them, because they said, Ya layta lana mithla ma utiya Qarun. We want what he wants. We wish we have that. But those who have knowledge said this, and said, Thawabullah khayrun liman amana wa amila salihan. But the reward of Allah, whoever believes and does good action, is khair to this, is better than this. Don't look at what Qarun has. Look at what the people who have done good deeds. Compare yourself to those that have good deeds. Again, a comparison that we understand from this, that is good. Look at wastabaqul khairat. Compete when it comes and race each other when it comes to good action. Race each other when it comes to volunteering. When they say somebody, we need to volunteer to do this, be the first one. When we need to open the doors, be the first one to be here. When it comes to leaving, be the last one. Have a competition with each other. I will be the last. I will help out, for example, help clean up the place, for example, or any other, service that the center needs. So we learn from the true comparison and true competition that we should have from this verse and other verses is when it comes to action and amal saleh. And competing is something good. Quran uses this over wastabaqul khairat, compete each other. Or Quran mentions, for example, as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun. After mentioning the people of the right, the people of the left, Quran mentions in those that get sibqa, those that race each other. Brothers and sisters, unfortunately, we are racing each other when it comes to dunya. We look at each other's cars, we look at each other's homes, we're comparing ourselves. We don't race each other when it comes to knowledge. Who knows more? MashaAllah, he spends so much time. We don't compare each other when it comes to, generally speaking, when it comes to worship and ibadat, when it comes to hajj and ziyarat. This is where the race is. This is where the comparison should be. And what happens that I mentioned if we compare each other when it comes to the world? Anxiety and stress. We compare ourselves, our degrees, where we went to school, even though this is all important, if it is for the akhirah, is good, or we compare each other when it comes to wealth. This is another factor that will cause stress. So to conclude tonight, one of the greatest problems that modern man has is stress. And we talked about different factors that cause anxiety and stress. Tonight, we talked about how to remove this stress. One, we said, acquaintance and companionship. When you see your brother in Islam whose heart is full of light and nur, you will be calm. You will be calm. But when you have acquaintance with the sinner, when you have acquaintance with those that are corrupt, your heart will also have ittirab, will have anxiety. So to learn from the scholars, the ulama that are Rabbani, divine scholars, spiritual scholars, learn from each other that are students, and to make yourselves, in a good way, you spend your time with yourselves, you will remain calm. Two, what I mentioned is stop comparison. And when we compare our financial situation, our children, for example, different things we compare with one another, you only get sadness because there's always somebody that is better than you. There's always somebody that is richer than you, somebody who has more children, better children than us, for example. We have to compare ourselves when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to good action. Inshallah, may Allah remove from us, inshallah, stress and anxiety. Remember that the awliya of God, they do not have fear. The awliya of God and vicegerents and friends of Allah, they have la yahzanun. They don't have huzn and grief. Inshallah, one day our Islam can be so complete that we're full of happiness and we're full of calmness and we're full of hope. And this is what we're trying to attain, especially during these difficult times. To be patient, as you notice, my speeches are very related to what is going on. A few weeks before, I was talking about patience, and now I'm talking about calmness and staying away from stress and anxiety, which can lead into depression. May Allah, inshallah, help all of us attain this, bring back for us the Imam of the age, give us a good connection to Imam al-Zaman, make Allah satisfied with us and make us satisfied with Allah, remove suffering and grief throughout the entire world, especially in Lebanon and Gaza. Make us, inshallah, of those who command the good and enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Allah, forgive our sins, inshallah. Forgive the sins of those who have departed. Give shafa and cure to all of those that are looking for shafa and cure. All of those that are looking for marriage, inshallah, give them the best of spouses. Those that are looking to have a child, give them the best of children, inshallah. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal farajahu.